Welcome back, Double Stack 1911. Got a quick video, maybe it's a quick video for you guys today. Underneath my education series, I did a video before where I talked about equal light, equal height, right? With regards to how do you aim. Today, I want to talk about how do you choose the right pistol for you or the right firearm for you. And I think you have to really ask yourself in the beginning, what exactly are you going to do with this firearm? If you're like many people right now and they're looking at a state of unrest and things like that, maybe you want this for self-defense. Maybe you want it for home defense, not necessarily this, one and the same. Maybe you want it for just joyful shooting at the range. Maybe you want it because you live out in the country and you want to get rid of some rodents and things like that. You really need to establish what do you want this firearm for. But for the sake of this video, I want to assume that you want a firearm for your personal defense. And there's lots of people out there with lots of different opinions. Some will say, hey, I'm a Glock person, you want low maintenance, always buy a Glock, they're reliable, they're gonna shoot, blah, 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 blah. And there's some truth to that. And some people like me who might say, you want a Double Stack 1911, they got a real crisp trigger, it's gonna help you aim better so that you can have more better target acquisition. That has some truth too, but each one of those by themselves is not exactly accurate. What I would say, if you really want to purchase a pistol or a rifle or a shotgun, something for self-defense, meaning anywhere you go, that's going to rule out a shotgun and it's going to rule out a rifle. Because I don't care where you live here in the United States, if you're in a city of some sort, you can't carry that in an open carry type of way, or even try to conceal it is extremely difficult. You're probably going to be looking at a pistol. And there's lots of pistols to choose from, lots of price ranges to go from. I would say that that's the next thing is you really need to consider is what is your maximum budget, right? It's not going to really do you that well if you are living outside of your budget. You need to understand your budget, and your budget needs to include the firearm. By the way, this is unloaded, right? You can see there, it's unloaded. Needs to include the firearm, needs to include a holster if you plan on carrying it, right? Needs to include ammunition, right? The gun is not very useful if you do not have any ammunition. So, when you start thinking about the gun you want to carry or the gun you want to use for self-defense, I highly would recommend that you ask some of your friends that carry firearms, what do they think? You're going to hear a variety of opinions. And then that should give you a good place to start. And then you need to go to the range and try a bunch of those out. So somebody's going to tell you, go get a Glock. They're reliable. You don't have to do much maintenance. You don't have to learn anything. You have other people are going to say, get a 2011 style pistol. Like me as an example, I'd probably tell you that. And then other people are going to say, yes, but that requires a little bit of maintenance. You're going to have to learn some things about your firearm. That is exactly true. And you're going to have a lot of different, going back and forth through there. A lot of folks are going to tell you to get a Glock clone or something that is striker fired, which to help you, right? So if striker fire, by the way, just so you know, this is hammer fired. You can see I have a hammer here that when I hit the trigger, the hammer goes in, right? Other pistols, I don't have one within range here. They don't have this hammer. Everything's internal. So that is something you need to think about. And then, however, even before you get there, you need to think about caliber. There is a lot of conversations around what types of ammunition you should actually run in your self-defense. Some people will say, 380 because it shoots light and it's soft and it's about the same size as a 9mm anyway. Some people are going to say, 9mm is the best of everything. That happens to be one of my opinions. Other people will say, you got to go with a 45. The stopping power is unparalleled. I used to be of that opinion. But the reality is two things. You want the largest caliber that you can handle, right? That also is generally at an affordable price for you, right? If you're really balling on a budget, there's certain things you might not really want to mess with regards to ammo. Like you might not want 10mm, right? You might not want those extravagant prices with certain types of ammo. And then you're also going to want the biggest handgun that you can, one, conceal, and two, shoot. A lot of people will say, oh, get these little bitty guns, these small little subcompact guns. The problem is that most of the time, they're not very pleasurable to shoot, which means that you're not going to want to go to the range and shoot that thing. Some people are very committed, right? So they'll get those small guns and they'll go to the range until it gets to be comfortable, but you know yourself. If you're not that type of person, then you should not do a subcompact gun because in general, it's not going to be very pleasurable. It's going to have a lot of recoil. It's going to be jumping around all over the place. And to those people that talk about Glocks are great, very low maintenance, well, you also want a pistol that you can manage, right? So when you're holding that thing and it's bouncing all over like this, you're going to feel like it's bouncing out of your hand. You're going to be gripping it hard, be shaking, which means you're going to not be very accurate. With all that being said, there are a lot of people out there who have mastered subcompact pistols. You need to be honest with yourself. Are you the one that's going to put in the work for you to go to the range and shoot a pistol for however long it takes for you to get used to it, but in the short term, you do not like it? You don't enjoy it, right? You're not accurate. And remember, most of the experts say that in a self-defense situation, you will shoot to the lowest point of your training. So if you never train, right, that means that you're going to miss a lot, right? You're going to be under stress. Your pupils are going to be dilated. Your adrenaline's going to be flowing. Your eyes will be restricted. And you're going to miss. And the only thing worse than missing your target in a self-defense situation is hitting the wrong person, right? Or hitting something that you really didn't know or didn't mean to aim at, which could be, I'm not going to give a bunch of examples, but it could be very bad. So part of your training with regards to your self-defense pistol will be, how do I make sure that I hit what I'm aiming at and don't hit what I'm not aiming at, right? You don't want to hit the wrong person. You don't want to, destroy things that you really don't want to destroy, especially if it's in your home and maybe there's a break-in or something, and that could go really bad if you're not practicing. So the goal here is to really buy the best pistol that you can practice with on a regular basis, that's within your budget, and that can also allow you to conceal carry. Now, I'm a bigger person, so I can actually carry a full-size gun if I wanted, and conceal and carry a full-size pistol. However, most people aren't like that, right? I would admit that I'm not average. So especially if you're a little lady, right, this might be too big for you. But I would argue that, even this you might be able to carry for some ladies. A lot of people who like Glocks tend to go for the Glock 19, and I think it is the most concealed carry pistol out there is the Glock 19. Give it a shot. See what you think. You might like it. I think it's small, but it's not too small, and it's easy to be, it's easy to manage, and it requires very little maintenance. When I go to the range with this as an example, probably after every third range trip that I put, almost 1,000 rounds through it, it's time for me to take it apart and clean it. And for some people, they don't want to do that. If you get a Glock, you will need to clean it at some point, but you don't need to clean it anywhere near as much as this gun, which is a Prodigy 4 1/4, 1911 DS, double stack. So hopefully you guys are finding this useful. I really want you guys to leave some comments. If we want to argue about this in the comments, that's fine too, right? I want to hear what your concealed carry pistol is, and what would you recommend for people in general who are looking for their first pistol. They have a goal of wanting to conceal carry it and keep it for their defensive pistol. Do you think that a Prodigy DS would be the right option for them, or do you think it would be, say, a Glock 19, or I also have a Glock 45 Gen 5. Do you think that they should go out and buy the new Glock Gen 6, right? Or what do you think? We could be respectful and have this conversation. And for those of you who are new shooters, look through the comments, hear what people are saying. There really is no one right answer. And there could be a lot of people in the comments that are going to say something or point out something that maybe I missed here. But I think you got to start somewhere. Again, my key message is don't buy a pistol that you're not going to enjoy shooting, right? A lot of people get, maybe a small little gun that's with a high caliber count and or high caliber, and they just don't enjoy shooting it, and hence they don't go to the range, right? And because that's another thing. It's going to cost you a little money to go to the range. You got your range fees, you got the ammo you're going through. You're gonna need to buy targets some kind of way. The cost can start getting up there. So you really need to enjoy it. Otherwise, you're gonna be sitting around counting every dollar, wondering what the heck happened. So again, double stack 1911. Please like, subscribe, comment, and support your boy. Have a great day.